Hi there everyone and welcome back to Higher Biology. Today we're going to be continuing on with Unit 1, DNA in the Genome, and we're moving on to Key Area 3, which is gene expression. So first off, what gene expression is it's the process of using information from a gene in order to synthesize or make a protein. And this is through protein synthesis, which you may have been familiar with from National 5. Other terms that you might have been familiar with as well is that a cell's genotype is made up by the sequence of bases in its genes. So the genotype is basically the genes that you have. However, your phenotype is determined by the proteins that are made when genes are expressed. And you should remember that phenotype is what you physically look like. So you should remember from National 5 that in protein synthesis, you basically have DNA in the nucleus, which is then matched with an mRNA strand which is made from the DNA, which then leaves the nucleus, goes to the ribosome, and that codes for amino acids and then proteins. Although that's a simpler way of describing it, the basics of it are still the same. However, in higher, we break this down into two different parts. The first stage, transcription, is the synthesis or the making up of an mRNA strand from a section of DNA, and that takes place in the nucleus. The second part is translation, and this is the synthesis of protein using those genetic instructions from mRNA, and that's at the ribosome. The way I try to remember the order of these is think of transcribing something as like writing down instructions. It's easier to write down something and then be able to translate it if you're trying to make sense of what it says. During this part, we'll talk a little bit about DNA, but then we'll be going in to talk about RNA quite a lot, and it's important for you to know the differences between them. You should already know that RNA is single-stranded as opposed to DNA, which is a double-stranded helix, but there's a couple of other differences that need to be aware of. First of all is the sugar that's used. So in DNA, we know that DNA has a deoxyribose sugar in its nucleotide. However, in RNA, it's ribose, which accounts for the R in its title. Secondly, you all know the DNA complementary matching of cytosine and guanine in the bases, and adenine and thymine. In RNA, cytosine and guanine still match with each other, but adenine matches with uracil. There is no thymine in RNA, there's uracil instead. So instead of a T, it's a U. So be careful for watching out of that if you're asked to write down the complementary bases of RNA. Also with RNA, there's three different types of RNA molecule that we're going to look at. The first is mRNA, messenger RNA, which you should have came across before. This carries a copy of the genetic code from the nucleus to the ribosome, like a message. The second, which you won't have came across before, is transfer RNA, which is tRNA. And what this does is this carries a specific amino acid to the ribosome. Also with the ribosome itself is made up of proteins and rRNA, which is ribosomal RNA. So it's quite an easy way of remembering it. These will all make a bit more sense once we look at the process of protein synthesis. So to start off with, like I said, mRNA is first of all transcribed from DNA in the nucleus, and then it's translated into proteins at the ribosome. So let's have a look at the first part, which is transcription. So here we have a double-stranded helix of DNA, and what we want to have is a single strand of RNA from this. So the enzyme RNA polymerase is going to move along this gene and unwind the double helix, breaking the hydrogen bonds between the bases, a bit like when we looked at DNA polymerase in the previous key area. Once this has happened, we then have RNA polymerase synthesizing a primary transcript of mRNA from the free RNA nucleotides that are around the area, and this takes place through complementary base pairing. So remember, it's going to be the same complementary base pairing, but instead of a T, there's going to be a U. Instead of thymine, there's uracil. Okay, so this blue strand is now that single strand of mRNA we've been wanting to get. This keeps going on from the 5' end to the 3' end of the growing mRNA molecule until a specific sequence of nucleotides called a stop codon is reached, and we'll look at codons later. So you can see this blue strand of mRNA that's you're matching up, so A matches with U, C matches with G, etc. Until you get to the ones that I've put in red, UAG, which are a stop codon. When it reaches that, the mRNA strand now knows to stop matching with complementary bases, and what we call this is a primary transcript of mRNA, so the first transcript of mRNA. So I mentioned codons there. What codons are each triplet of bases. So every 3 bases makes a codon on the mRNA strand. What these 3 bases or triplets do is they code for a specific amino acid once we go into transcription, or translation, sorry. You don't need to know the amino acids, but there are 21 of them in total, and the different combinations of all these different amino acids, which linked together, make different proteins. So in the diagram here, you can see that there's an RNA molecule, but every 3 bases it's split into a new codon. All of these codons are then going to code for a new amino acid or a specific amino acid, and they all be linked together and make a protein. This is a full list of them, so you can see if you look at the first column, it tells you the codon of mRNA. There's then going to be an anticodon, which is what it's going to match with, and then it tells you the amino acid that that's going to match with. So there's so many different combinations here. They're going to make different amino acids, which in turn are going to make different proteins. But we'll get to that in a minute. So first off, this primary transcript of mRNA could be absolutely huge, but not all of the genetic information in an organism is used in the coding process. So for example, you could transcribe an area of DNA to mRNA around 8,000 nucleotides long, but only 1,200 of those nucleotides are actually going to code for a protein, or a normal protein. So what we end up with something called introns and exons. So that primary mRNA transcript is made up of these different areas, where introns are areas that do not code for anything, whereas exons are areas that do code. And they're going to be spliced, which is basically cut and joined together, to form something called a mature mRNA transcript. So the primary transcript is changed to a mature mRNA transcript. What's important to remember as well is that exons don't change their place, just the introns are removed, the exons remain unchanged in their space, they just get joined together. So one of the ways I like to remember which parts are coding and which are non-coding is that if we're looking at the process of gene expression, exons are expressed, whereas introns are not. Introns are just removed and cut away. So in this process known as splicing, or RNA splicing, the introns are removed, and then the exons are spliced together. So you now have this long area of coding regions that you need for gene expression to take place. One thing to keep in mind though is that the same gene, the same row of genetic information, can be used to make several different proteins, because if you treat a different region as an intron or an exon, that means that there's the potential to have different mature mRNA transcripts depending on what you splice. So for example, in this top row here, this is one we looked at already, but similarly, it could be the second row. That exon could become an intron, and you remove that. The intron could become an exon, and then you've got an area of primary mRNA transcript there that's going to be changed into mature mRNA transcript. The basics of this is that the same primary mRNA transcript has the potential to produce several different mature mRNA transcripts. What they have is the potential to make more amino acids or different amino acids, which will then make different proteins. So, moving on to the second part of translation. So in translation, we have the synthesis, the making up of protein from the instructions from that mature mRNA transcript. So remember, to get to this point, we had the DNA nucleus. We then transcribed a primary mRNA transcript. The primary mRNA transcript was then spliced in order to make a mature mRNA transcript, and there we're here at the ribosome. So remember, these codons determine which amino acids will be joined together in order to make a particular protein. So I mentioned the stop codon earlier on. There's a start codon at this part as well, which is AUG. So the green one start, red stop. So once the mature mRNA transcript gets to the ribosome, the start codon signals for the process of translation to begin. And then when it hits a stop codon, protein synthesis stops. That tRNA molecule that we spoke about earlier on is now going to make an appearance. The tRNA is found in the cytoplasm, and each molecule of tRNA looks like the diagram on the right here, where at the bottom there'll be a triplet of bases called an anticodon, which is complementary to the mRNA codons. So they're going to come across and match with their complementary mRNA codon. At the top of this tRNA molecule, though, is an amino acid, and it's the amino acids that we're interested in. So these anticodons are going to match with the codons for every 3 bases that we have, and then there's going to be a bunch of amino acids at the top which are going to be connected together to make a protein. The following diagrams will make it a bit simpler to understand. So if you imagine this yellow blob here as a ribosome, the first stage of translation is the mature mRNA transcript attaches to the ribosome, and the start codon begins the process of protein synthesis. What will happen here is the complementary tRNA anticodons will attach to the mature mRNA transcript, and that brings a specific amino acid for each codon to form a protein molecule. So here we have at the start AUG matches with UAC, and at the top of that molecule there's a MET amino acid. You can see there's other tRNA molecules that are making their way across, and these are all going to form together in a nice complementary base pairing. So we have our mature mRNA transcript at the bottom, and then we have our tRNA complementary anticodons at the top with their designated amino acids. What's going to happen with these amino acid molecules though, as bonds are going to form between them to join them all together, and these are peptide bonds. So these link all the amino acid molecules together, and then once the ribosome has worked its way through all of these, the tRNA molecules are then going to leave, because the important thing is the amino acids are there and they are now attached. Once the ribosome hits the stop codon, then protein synthesis is ended. So we end up with the mature mRNA transcript which is being used, and now we have a row of amino acids which have been linked together by peptide bonds to form polypeptides. A polypeptide is a protein. So once we have this, the string of amino acids are now their polypeptides and linked together by their peptide bonds, they can also fold to form different 3D shapes of different proteins, and these are held together by hydrogen bonds in order to hold them into a different shape. And there are other interactions between individual amino acids. So if you look at the diagram on the right here, you could have this helix shape which is held together by hydrogen bonds, pulling them into that sort of shape, or it could be more fibrous. It could just be a string of polypeptides that are slightly folded. The reason for this is that the variety of shapes in proteins determines their function. Okay, you don't need to know any more than that just now, but basically the different ways that a protein is shaped together by these hydrogen bonds, pushing and pulling them into different shapes, will give them a different function. In summary, because there is quite a lot in this key area, I'd like to know the processes of transcription and translation in order to make a protein. So in transcription, the gene is copied into an mRNA strand using RNA polymerase. That primary mRNA transcript is then spliced by removing the introns into a mature mRNA transcript, and that takes place in the nucleus. In translation, the mRNA strand, the mature mRNA strand, attaches to the ribosome. The tRNA brings its anticodons and amino acids together. The peptide bonds form between the amino acids to create a protein, and this takes place in the ribosome. So from that initial part where we just have the genetic information in the DNA in the nucleus, we end up with a new protein being formed. So that's it for key area 3. I'm going to attach a quiz, and I'll be adding these to the previous videos as well to help you put your knowledge into action. But thanks very much for listening to this video, and I'll get on with key area 4 very shortly. Thanks so much for listening.